All right, welcome to my stream. My name is Ryan, and I am building an Amazon Alexa skill from scratch. Yeah, so I work for the Amazon Alexa team. I am a technical evangelist. My role is to inspire and educate developers to build with Amazon Alexa, specifically skills to run on Echo devices like the devices I have behind me. So part of my job is to stay fluent with the technologies and be building skills and then showcasing how to do that. So what better way than to live stream building out a skill, and watching me code and watching me learn and watching me make mistakes along the way. So I'm building a skill that the end result I hope to submit to the store and get published, and hopefully be useful. So what is it? It is a skill that will index and allow us to search and then serve up past YouTube videos. Specifically, the use case is around old Alexa developer office hours videos. So every Tuesday, myself and my co-host Jeff Blagenberg get online. We stream to a variety of different locations: Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we answer questions from the developer community. So if you have a question, you can come join us live. You can ask us, and we answer them best we can, or we try to get back to you in future episodes. But after every single episode is done, each video gets archived inside of YouTube, where we now have hundreds and hundreds of videos of past Q&A. And the interesting thing is that we've answered so many questions that we have, and not just me, because I've only been on the team for about the last 6 or 7 months, but we have hundreds of videos where we have tons of content. And what I'm trying to solve is the use case of, if you are a developer and you have questions, but it's not Tuesday morning, you can't join us live, then can you go and look through the archive of YouTube videos and find the answer to your question that you have. Today, that's nearly impossible. You'd have to go and just watch hundreds and hundreds of videos, which would be really, really time consuming. And so what I'm doing is I'm building a backend service that will pull down all those YouTube videos, will transcribe them, pull out the text, index them, and store them inside of a searchable database. And then the end result is we're going to create an Alexa skill, and that's actually what I just started on. An Alexa skill where I could go to one of my devices with a screen and say, show me from office hours where we talked about Alexa presentation language, or even just more generically, talk to me about certification, and have it just pull in videos that are relevant to that topic, and you'll be able to just watch them on the screen. I need to figure out in the future how I'm going to do this for audio-only devices that don't have a screen. I think we just play the audio. But that's what I'm building. That's what I've been live coding. I have all this in GitHub, so anyone can follow along, download this entire infrastructure into their environment. And I've already pulled down, I think, about 300 videos and transcribed them and added them to my searchable database. So last time I had just created the Alexa skill. I went to the Alexa developer console and said create new skill, and was able to get it to show up on my device. It hasn't connected to the database, hasn't done anything yet, but the point is I had code that was working. And let me switch over and start showing my repository, and we can start talking about what we have. So this is my repository. It's in my repo. I have a link from my Twitch account over to this repository, or all my repositories. And this one's it's a pinned repository, so hopefully you can find it. And I need to update the README file, but what I'm doing is I'm building this skill and backend service as I go. I don't have a grand master plan of how I think all this is going to fit together. And I've already had to rework a bunch of things in order to respond to what I have are bad assumptions. So this is the architecture diagram. It's a total mess right now, but once I have a better understanding of what this thing is going to look like, I'm probably going to redraw this architecture diagram to make a little bit more sense. But I've just been building it out over time as I've learned more about what infrastructure is needed. And so what do I have so far? I have the whole backend service to process videos. I'm sure I'm going to need to make updates to it. In fact, one of the very first things I want to do is go into logs and make sure that I processed yesterday's office hours successfully. But what do I have? So I have a subscription where I have a state machine that's helping me manage this subscription. to a service called pubsubhubbub, which will notify me when new YouTube videos are published to the channel. And those come in through API Gateway. And then what I do is I kick off a state machine. That state machine will then go, and I use state machines to orchestrate big long-running processes, which this is one of them. It takes about a half hour to process an hour-long video. And what am I doing? I am converting. First thing I'm doing is calling a service called AWS Media Convert to convert that video over into a format that can be used by Amazon Transcribe. Amazon Transcribe then pulls out all the text, and then I call Amazon Comprehend to kind of make sense of that text, and then I store that text inside of OpenSearch. So Comprehend gives me things like what entities are discussed in the different paragraphs. It also tells me what key phrases are there. And both those I think are going to be really useful to help figure out what search, like how to structure the search query to be as performant as possible, because we can search all these different aspects. And so OpenSearch is a fork of Elasticsearch and allows us to do really, really powerful full text searching. And so that sadly is the only component in this entire architecture that is not serverless. So everything else is Lambda, API Gateway, it's state machines, DynamoDB. I'm not paying for it unless I'm actually using it, except for the OpenSearch cluster, which I created. That has to run pretty much constantly. So we have that functioning. I have a couple more state machines. I wrote one state machine just to go and process all of the videos from the video library, which there's about 600 videos. I stopped it after it processed about 300 videos because I wanted to make sure that I had everything working before I went and processed the entire collection. These services like Transcribe and Media Convert are not necessarily expensive, but when you start doing 600 hours of video, it does add up. So I want to make sure that I'm not processing all those, and I want to make sure I have everything working precisely. I'm, storing the data in OpenSearch in a way that I can search it and all that before I completely pull down the entire repository. But I have enough data, I have enough videos, I have enough to work with, I think, to make this actually usable. So I'm pretty excited about that, and we should be able to start making real progress on the skill now. So let's see. The other thing, I have been having all kinds of fun internet issues lately. I live in the middle of nowhere, so my choices are rather slim. I was using Starlink. I have switched over. I've been trying to use two different internet services at once. So I have a backup service that literally bounces an antenna off of a mountain, which gives me slower speeds but way more consistent speeds. So I'm trying to use that for OBS and for my live stream. And then my computer, I'm trying to have it use my Starlink internet, which has much faster download speeds, but very inconsistent. So it doesn't really like to stream so well. At least in the last few weeks, it hasn't. So we'll see how this is working. I have Twitch Inspector open. It's not looking great, but we'll just see how this goes. I'm not quite getting a steady bit rate like what I would want. My frame rate is dropping, but let's just see how it goes. I do record these locally, so at the end of each episode, I do upload to YouTube, my YouTube channel, a nice recording version of this that won't have a bunch of drop frame rates. So bear with me. I'm trying to figure this out. The best internet connection possible. What I don't want to do is drop down my resolution, because then it would be really difficult for me to work on a much lower resolution screen. I like my screen space. So anyway, all that. So again, where do we leave off? We left off last time where I went to the developer console. I had created my Alexa skill. I called it Developer Office Hours. I gave it an invocation name of Developer Video Archive. I can change this right up until we publish. And so I should be able to do things like computer, open Developer Video Archive. It should show up.
Welcome to the Developer Office Hours Video Library Search.
That's all it does right now. Not a whole lot, but it's kind of like the Hello World version of my skill. So I created this here in the console.
The Developer Office Hours Video Library Search.
Computer, stop.
Goodbye.
Nice. And then, so I have the front end here in the developer console where I started it, but it is connected to a Lambda that I defined inside of a CloudFormation, actually using the service application model SAM framework on my local machine to deploy it. So in my repo, I have all the source code. I'm using SAM to compile and deploy all my Lambda functions. So I have a bunch of Lambda functions. The Lambda skill is just one Lambda function that we have in this entire repository. And we have all the other Lambda functions that do all sorts of other microservices, such as calling media convert, checking on the status of transcriptions, things like that. So we have one giant repository with one giant YAML template. This is getting to, we're at 1,100 lines of infrastructure code. So this is a YAML file that's defining my infrastructure as code. So the great thing is I can just run a command on my local machine to compile and deploy this all out there nice consistently. But what I want to do now is I actually want to add my skill front end to my repository so we can be managing that. I created the skill in the developer console, but now what I can do is I can use VS Code in a plugin to pull that down. So we'll do that today. But very first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to go in and see if we successfully processed the YouTube video from yesterday. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure, let me go back to my architecture diagram. So yesterday I should have received, it should have been about 12 hours after we broadcast live. There seems to be a delay in between you broadcast to YouTube live and then it does some sort of backend processing, it appears, and then like the final video ends up onto the YouTube channel. We will get a signal at that point in time that the YouTube video is available, and that we should have received that from pubsubhubbub, and we should have processed the entire thing. So what I want to do is I want to go check my logs. So the very first place I'm going to check is actually my Cloudwatch logs. I added logging to API Gateway so I could see every single request that comes in from API Gateway. So let's go over to Cloudwatch. Looks like my stream is starting to level off. That'd be great. It is raining today in the desert. I don't know if that affects me bouncing internet off of the mountain near me or not. But we'll just do what we can. Okay, so let me go down to here is my API Gateway execution log. And it does not look like I received anything yesterday. So my last log event came in at February 15th, and it looked great. It looks like the one on February 15th. Where is the actual request body? Request body. It looks like this, we did get notified of a YouTube video last week, so this is the 23rd, so it was last week. We got notified. We did not get anything yesterday. So what that tells me is I need to go look at my state machine that is managing my subscriptions. So if I go over to state machine, so if I didn't get a notification, then my subscription with pubsubhubbub had expired and didn't successfully get renewed. So I have a state machine that's managing this. So what happens is when you subscribe to pubsubhubbub, it tells you how long the subscription lasts. And so what I do is I kick off a state machine. I say, wait until the subscription is expired and then renew the subscription. So if I come over, here I have a state machine and it succeeded, but as you can see, it didn't restart. So it succeeded. It called refresh my subscription. And let's go look at the Cloudwatch logs for this guy. So this executed on the 19th, which is when the subscription expired. And what is the response that we got here? I may have to put this into... Let me do this. New file. Let me just do this. Test.html. I just want to render what this looks like. We'll do that, and then looks like I need all the slash ins, but it didn't seem to give me the response I was expecting. Okay, so this was the endpoint. Let me look at the Lambda source code too, so I make sure I know what these were logging. Okay, so I was logging the URL that it was going to call. So let's see what this is. Let me copy this URL. And this looks like the right URL. It's got my YouTube video. Got the right channel. It's got my callback URL for our API gateway. And then the response looks like just a standard response. So it doesn't look like it actually did anything. And I did a GET request because I'm pretty sure that was what was needed. So let me just paste in this here. And actually, let me look at this. Let me actually look at the subscription details. So the best way to do this would be I want to get the actual values. Okay, so the topic URL is that plus, where's YouTube channel? Is that an environment variable? So we should be having another YouTube video posted soon to the channel. So I want to make sure this is actually working. In about an hour and a half, we're going to be doing a YouTube video in my secret. We'll be doing a tech talk where we'll also be doing that live, and then it should also be going into YouTube. So I want to make sure that we capture that. And then where is my API callback URL? Oh, that comes in via the event. And I should have logged the event. Did I not log the event? Yeah. Oh, debug. I need to actually... but I also will get that from here. So this is my callback URL. And then my super secret, that was an environment variable here. So let's see if this has subscription details. So it was successfully verified on the 14th, it expired on the 19th, and we never got a valid subscription event. So what I'm thinking is calling post or calling get on this is what caused the issue. It should have been a post event. I thought get was the correct way to send this request over. So, but if we look at the pubsubhubbub documentation, it actually does talk about a post. So this is something I was a little bit worried about, but when I was looking through how the tool actually worked, there are so the spec for this talks about using posts, but one of the other APIs, you have to actually use a GET request. And so I just assumed that that would also work. Here, it looks at the specification. So if we look up subscribing and unsubscribing, it does call for a post request. So what we want to do is we want to trigger a Python post. So let me look up. I Google everything. Just go ahead next. think we just want to do request. Okay, let's. Oh, I see. Cheapers. Okay. Let's just make sure we have everything. I'm playing around with this in the cloud, then I'll bring it back over to my local machine. So request and parse, great. So let's just do this. Request equals request. And then contents equal hopefully that's right. Yeah. Okay. So let's just make sure this is working. I think we can still I think I can still use get parameters. Find parameters in its body. Nope, I cannot. So let's convert this over to a dictionary. Data. Okay, so what I want to do, I still need URL safe, I'm assuming. Or it's just going to URL encode the entire thing. Okay, well, let's not do that then. Let's do this. So this is the hub.callback is, I don't need a safe callback. I'll just do callback URL. Hub.mode is subscribe. Hub.topic is, should be that. And then we'll do this. That's going too far. Let's call it D. And then we'll put D there. URL, we need data equals data. And then hopefully to URL, we want to change this to be like that because we're just, let's see what happens when we deploy this now. Oops. I haven't ever tested this, so I need to actually copy the input. So I'm letting state machine actually trigger all my Lambda functions. So what I could do is I can, instead of kicking off the new state machine, I just call the Lambda directly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the input from one of the previous executions over. So when I test my Lambda function, I can just pass that over. Great. And then let's test it. Name parse. It'd be very helpful if I brought over. That is why. Okay. I like the way they do it in the over here in the answer, but we'll just do this. I like the way they imported it over better. Okay, so let's update. It's deploying. Now we test it. Awesome. Okay, we can verify this now by recalling the, what do they call this? The diagnostics. So if I refresh this, it did work. Okay, so we have last verification was today, expires on Monday. And if this worked correctly, then there should be a new state machine instance going. And there is. So this will run again. It'll call the Lambda function, and now we're doing the correct post method, so everything should be happy. I am going to copy this and paste over my local. So what do I call this? This is my pubsubhubbub Lambda. Should be right here. Yep, this is it. So let me just paste over this, and then next time I deploy this code, it'll overwrite it, and we'll go back to managing everything locally. But I do want to clean up this. So this is not needed anymore. Save callback is not used. Let me do this actually. Save callback is no longer being used. Save topic is no longer being used. And I think everything else looks good. See, if I would have kept this code in, which checks the status of the subscription, then I could have sent an error message. So I do still intend on doing that. After I make call to resubscribe, I want to go back and check the status of it. So I will do that at some point. It would have saved me trouble here, but we're just manually checking it. So we did not get the YouTube video from yesterday. What I can do is if I go to our channel, this is the office hours from yesterday. So what I can do is come in here and grab this URL, and we're going to manually just process this URL. So if I go to state machines, this is my main state machine that is processing all the videos. So you can see it's processed a ton of videos. I do have a bunch of failures in here. The failures all seem to be 410 errors from YouTube. So as I'm downloading these videos, I'm doing them one at a time. So I'm processing the backlog of like 600 videos one at a time. So it took like a week to get to 300 videos. But I get failures every once in a while, and they're all failures that YouTube is basically throttling me. Not too surprising. But what I'll just come back in and just re-execute the ones that failed, and we should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find one of these. I'm going to say new execution because I just wanted the parameters here. I'll paste in the YouTube video from yesterday. I'll hit start execution, and hopefully this will go through and process the video from yesterday. Again, my end goal is that this is all just completely automated and wired up to go. But because of that bug in my resubscription logic, it didn't work. No big deal. We're going to just, as we go, we're just going to keep building until we get everything working fine. So this will take probably about 40 minutes to process, and then we'll have yesterday's YouTube video in here. Okay, so we've updated the repo here. I added another folder inside my repository for queries. I'm going to get to this and get back to this in a minute. But here I'm starting to write OpenSearch queries. I have no idea what, first of all, I'm not an OpenSearch or Elasticsearch query expert. So I have no idea what is going to be the best kind of query syntax to use. I'm playing around with a bunch of different aggregations and functions to add weighting and all sorts of other really cool stuff. I'm going to continue to play around with this kind of on my free time. I don't want to waste time streaming looking at this because it's just kind of time consuming to look at query results, but we'll do a little bit of that today. But the first thing I wanted to do is pull down, or my next thing I wanted to do was pull down the skill code into my repository so that we can start both using the console to redeploy the skill, but then also locally to build and redeploy the skill. And we'll just go ahead, let's add a new folder for skill front end. And what I'm going to do, so I have over here the Alexis Skills Kit extension for VS Code installed. And so I've installed it, I've configured it so it knows my account, knows my environment. And now what I want to do is I want to download and edit a skill. You can create a skill from here. I went through the console to do that. I find that to be a little bit easier when I already have a Lambda function deployed. So if you remember, I have the Lambda function that my skill is using in the rest of my infrastructure. By default, like there's 3 different ways you can have an Alexa skill kind of work with Lambda. You don't even have to use Lambda, but it's one of my favorite ways to do it, mostly because it's serverless. So you can create a skill and say, I want to use an Alexa hosted Lambda function. In that scenario, it's completely free. They spin up a Lambda function, the console does, and you can just go in and you can start playing with it. You can add all your code. You are limited in what you can do with that Lambda function. But it is nice and free. It's a great way to get started. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to just like start playing around building Lambda skills, building any sort of skill for Alexa. But there are limitations there. The next way is you can say, go ahead and create, so you provided your Alexa credentials and your AWS credentials, and you say, go ahead and create a Lambda and deploy it into my infrastructure. And what it'll do is it'll go create a Lambda function for you, manage the connection, all the permissions, and then there you have like in one location where you can do the front end and the back end in one location. But I'm doing things a little bit differently. So I'm building my entire backend infrastructure. I already built my Lambda for a skill, and now I went into the console to create the connection between the two. Now I can download that here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, let's download and edit a skill. It's going to go look at my skills. I have a bunch of skills in my account. Because I work with skills all the time, I am constantly building skills and like throwaway skills to just test out new functionality. So this is the one I want. I'm going to put this into my folder skill front end, and it is going to download and put it in there. It is going to ask me this question. Workspace already contains one or more skill folders. Do you want to open this in a new workspace? It saw that there's other stuff in this repository, in this VS Code workspace, and it says, do you want to just redo this? I'm going to say no, and let's save the changes. And if I go back here, now I should have my Lambda code and my skill front end code, and it put a new folder for this particular skill. And this is actually what I wanted to happen, because what I want is I could potentially have multiple front-end skills that are calling into my back-end code, right? So I could have multiple skills, like kind of like in a multi-tenant scenario, I could have multiple skills I've created for different tenants, but I'm still, the whole back-end system's all the same. I've built my system in theory where I could handle all that. So this is perfect. This is exactly how I wanted it. And I'm just going to commit this right away. So git commit, let's see, updated sub. I should have committed this first. Hubbub, resub logic. And then I also added skill front end. Okay, so let's look at what just got downloaded. It is basically the code representation of what I have here. So I'm starting to configure my skill. I don't have anything really in here yet. I have a few intents. I have a search intent, which I haven't, which I think I called one time. And what it's doing is passing back to my backend code, the search intent history. But I'm going to have many, many more intents. I'm going to include multiple different slot types in here. This is going to grow quite large, and so I want to manage that inside of a version control system like Git. And actually, let's go ahead and delete. I checked in that stupid test HTML file. I obviously did not look at that too closely, but it will be gone. Okay. So let's look at this. So here we have, and the documentation for how all this is laid out is well documented in the technical documentation. But we can just kind of look through here. So here I have my skill resources. It basically gives me my skill ID and some metadata. I have my skill.json. Again, here's my endpoint. This is my Lambda function that it's pointing to. I will when this goes to production, I would actually specify multiple Lambda endpoints, so I would reduce latency. So if someone's calling this from a different region, it would actually use a Lambda function in that region, which can be useful to make the interaction much more tight and lower latency. Now my database is still only in one location. I'd have to replicate my database to have, like, really reduce the latency. But I can do things like add caching and other things. If I really, really, really need to reduce latency in other parts of the world. I'm probably not going to get that extensive in this. So it picked a category for me, knowledge and trivia. I didn't pick that, but I'll be able to change that. And then here are parts of the manifest and publishing information. I haven't even gone here and updated this publishing information yet, but there's that. And then here's my interaction model for E and US. I haven't created any other languages. I probably won't for quite a while, but we can support many different languages. Not all languages, but a lot of languages you can support in Amazon Alexa. So this is the actual the interesting part of the skill code, I think. So here I have an invocation name. Again, I can reconfigure this. I have my different intents. So intents are different things that your user is trying to do. So you get default ones like cancel and help and stop. And this is my custom one that I called search intent, where I want to actually perform a search. And right now it just is a really simple like search, blah, 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 blah. And what happens is my backend code will get called. It'll say, and the search intent was triggered, and blah, 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 blah was sent as a query. I can create multiple different sample utterances. These are utterances where I could say, find blah, 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 right? Like I can create a bunch of different sample utterances that Alexa will then say, like, let me look to, the user has said something, which intent does this match against? And we can look at all the sub utterances to figure out which is the right intent to match against. And it uses machine learning logic to take the audio that someone said and match it to an intent. Really cool things. And we're going to have, we're going to introduce other things like slots. So we'll have a bunch of slots here. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm indexing all of the YouTube videos, which includes office hours, and it includes Tech Talks and all kinds of other content from like Alexa Live. And so I want to be able to search those specific things. So I'll create what's called a slot value to say search from Alexa Live where Amazon Pay was discussed, and it would zoom to that point in time in the video. So we're going to continue to build this out. I actually find it a little bit easier to build some of this in the console. I think some of it is easier to build locally here in the JSON. But as far as like an educational, like teaching, I think the console does a better job of like allowing other people who are watching to understand what I'm doing. And then just kind of match this up. I do have the Lambda function that gets called from this. I call skill backend, and let me do this, and I accidentally close that other file. So again, like search intent is one of the intents. So if someone says search blah, 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 and I'm using this slot type called Amazon Search Query, which basically just matches everything. That will get passed over to my backend Lambda code here, and you can see here I've defined a handler in the Python SDK to handle the search intent. So when the search intent comes in, it's responding with hello world, but it's logging this query result. And so if we look at the logs, I'll be able to find that query result. And in fact, what we could do, and so let me do this. Let me pull open Lambda, this particular Lambda file. Skill backend. Let's go ahead and go to that in the Lambda console. Let me close some of these other ones. And if we look at the Cloudwatch logs here, so let's actually do this. So what I want to do is I want to open up my skill and I want to say search for something, and then what we'll see is for something will get passed into the Cloudwatch log. So again, my skill, the invocation name is this. So I say, I ask it to open this, and then I'll say search. Computer, open developer video archive. It should show up here.
Welcome to the Developer Office Hours Video Library Search.
Search for something or the other thing or that one thing I was looking for.
Hello world.
So it hit my Lambda code. Computer, stop. So it got to my backend code, it hit this because we did get the hello world response. And if I come to my Cloudwatch logs, I should have a new log where, so to be clear, as the Lambda handler executes for this Lambda function, I am logging both the incoming event, which should include the entire request, and I'm logging the entire response. And actually, I should add in there like easier placeholder finders. But the idea being like all the Alexa skill is doing is it's giving you a JSON document and it expects a return JSON document. Now, those JSON documents are very well formed, but that's really all we're doing. So if I go over to my CloudWatch log, I should get the first item here, which is the request. And this should be that we're hitting the launch request. So this is where I have a launch request handler over here. This is where I defined, welcome to the developer office hours video library search. And then I respond to that. Here is the response to that. So here I'm saying, welcome, exactly what it's supposed to be. So that gets responded back to the skill. The skill knows how to interpret that. It creates audio file from this where I can specify like all kinds of different syntax and how to respond, and then it plays it on the device. This device has a screen. I can also define like it's called Alexa presentation language, like a beautiful UI. We'll do that. We'll do that soon, but that's what we use to play the videos. We'll get to that. And then when I did search, here is the request for search. Here I got the request. You can see that it hit the search intent, and then here for something or the other thing that I was looking for, that one thing I was looking for. So here I actually got exactly what I was looking for. And so what I can actually do is respond with this and just basically echo what the user said. So what I can do here, these skill utils. So let me actually pull these up. I'm gonna look at these skill utils. Let me get a drink of water real quick. These are not the utils I was looking for, I don't think. What I was looking for is a utility to help me kind of parse this handler input. But let's just do this. Logging.info. Actually, I'm not sure if I can log the handler input directly. Let's go back to these utils. Excuse me. I said something. Pay me real quick. Okay. So back to here. So handler input. Oh my gosh. Excuse me. Okay, I'm just looking up something really quick. Okay. I'm just looking up the best way to pull these out. I'm looking through the sample repositories. Okay, that just seems okay. So the handler input that comes into this function. I was looking for a utility to help me process this, but that's all right. We just do this. So the requests that we were looking at over in my Cloudwatch logs, this request object is found in the handler input dot request envelope dot request. And then what we can do is we can look at request.intent.slots.query and hopefully get to what we were looking for. Yeah, okay. It's request dot, what did I say? Request dot intent. I was just making sure that the structure of this is, I don't need to, anyway. I was just looking, because it's not a JSON object by the time it gets into the different handlers. And so I was just looking at the different data types on these. And so once we get to slots, then I can say slots query. And this will give me the query slot. And then inside of here, what I want is the value. So I can do query slot.value will give me this entire thing. So here I want to say the speak output is query slot.value. Query slot.value. And it should respond with that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a reprompt equals, is that helpful? So here, yeah, it says, add a reprompt if you want to keep your session open for the user to respond. So without a reprompt, it was just going to close the session and be done. Unless you have APL document going, and then it kind of stays up a little bit longer so you can actually view the document. So here I'm going to add a reprompt. So what it's going to do is it's going to do my speak output, and then it's going to wait for a response, and it'll kind of like reprompt, like it'll say, is that helpful? Or I should say, was that helpful? Was that helpful? It's not, because all I'm doing is echoing out the response. Whatever the user searched for is just going to echo back out. This is not useful, but I'm just trying to show that how this kind of all links together. And we can at least get kind of started. Ooh, I almost knocked over my coffee. On kind of like putting this all together. So what I want to do, Sam, let me just, really? Okay. Sam build use what is it? Use I need to use Docker, but I can't remember what. Is it use container? Yes, use container. And then I had a couple other helpful things, flags. I just need to like actually create an alias for this. And cache. So these two commands, so what I'm doing is I'm building all my Lambda code, which I just modified the Lambda code. It's going to build it locally and then deploy it. I'm saying use a container because I had to build all these in Docker with SAM, so it builds in the correct Lambda environment. I'm going to say build in parallel and then use cache. So it doesn't have to rebuild every single function. By default, it would rebuild every single function in series, but I have a bunch of functions. I haven't modified any of them. So I'm just kind of ignoring those. And then we'll do SAM deploy. So this is what it's going to do is it's going to, again, update my Lambda function, and I failed. How'd that fail so quickly? Building, code URI, runtime. Docker is unreachable. I restarted my computer, but did not start Docker again. Oh, hey, we have Dr. Lazybeats joining. How's it going? Welcome. I've made progress on my skill. So right now I'm showing that the skill is working with my backend code. And soon what I want to do is I want to get to the point where we are actually running queries against our OpenSearch database and pulling back results. Right now I'm just proving that the connection exists between the two and showing how I'm doing like a simple hello world. I'm grabbing the query. I want to make sure I'm proving this so there's not like people think there's smoke and mirrors happening. But I'm redeploying and building everything locally, redeploying my Lambda function. And if I go back to my architecture diagram, where is that? Here is a terrible mess, but I'm building out this Alexa interaction model currently and this Lambda code so that I'm actually going to be able to query. So the Lambda code that I'm playing around with right now is this one, so I can actually query my OpenSearch database. And what I'm going to do probably next time is start working on the front-end controls and building out like how we're going to build a video player out on the Alexa device so I can actually start streaming results back. How's it deploying? It has to fetch a new Docker image. I wasn't expecting that. But while this is happening, while it's deploying, I'll kind of leave this visible so I can watch it. I do want to show the OpenSearch database. And I've been playing with different ways of searching it. So I processed, in the last couple of weeks, I processed about 300 videos from our YouTube channel. So this entire infrastructure is downloading YouTube videos. It is saving them off an S3. It is transcribing them and then putting all that transcription into a searchable database where then I can go and perform search queries. And I'm not like an expert in these in Elasticsearch or OpenSearch. But I do know how to kind of play around with this. And so here, kind of working back, well, I mistyped SAM deploy. It's not SAM deploy, SAM deploy. So this will deploy that up. So kind of working backwards on this. Well, actually, let me just do a simple search first. So here is, if I do a search for like all the paragraphs, so the paragraphs are like little, so I take like the full hour episode and I break it up into smaller chunks I call paragraphs. I'm storing each of those. And the beginning, we have a video play at the beginning of like all the office hours that has like audio. So you'll see like these So I need to figure out a way to get rid of those because they're like totally polluting the database. But you can see here, this is a paragraph of text. And so what I can do is I can search against those and I can do things like, let me do a bool search and must, and what I can do is, I think I can just do a query string inside of here. Actually, let me do it up here. I think this will work. What did I do? Oh, that's what I did. Okay, so if I do like a search for, a simple search for horse-sized duck, if I just do like a standard search, it's going to search across all the fields in my Elasticsearch database. Let me say yes to deploy this. And it's going to find all the different paragraphs of text that include horse-sized duck. You can see here, the first result was from February 15th, which is a week ago, and talking about 100 duck-sized horses. So this is a common question that Jeff asks guests on Alexa and Friends, but we also talk about it sometimes on developer office hours. But the point being, here's all the results for that. So this is a really simple search. Now, you can see here that it's going to pull back all the key phrases that are part of that search, that part of that paragraph, and it'll pull back basically all the different fields. So what I can do is I can say, let me restrict that and only pull back these fields on the document. So now when I do a search, it's only going to pull back these fields and gives me a little bit tighter. So my skill code will have a little bit less back and forth to transfer data around. The next thing that we came across that I was working on, do I have a better example of this? How to get a pre-signed URL. So this is like just a sample question that someone might have. So if I do this search, one of the things that I found was that I would get multiple results from the same episode returned. So I would get like, it would show one paragraph, and then the next search result would be like the very next paragraph, and the next search result would be like the very next paragraph, all in the same hour-long episode. And so what I wanted to do, like, here's an example. So these two results are from the same hour-long episode, and you can see this start time is 2,900 seconds in, and this one is 2,980 seconds in. So the idea being, like, I'm building a skill where I can say, show me from office hours how to get a pre-signed URL. And it'll pull back these results. But and then you could say, like, show me the next result, and it'll like page through the different results. But what I don't want is this, where it has like 10 snippets from the same episode back to back to back. So what I want to do is I want to aggregate these and put them into buckets by each episode. And so that's what this syntax down here is doing. It's creating aggregates by the publish date. And that's probably not the best search term to use. I think I had at one point, I was doing by video ID. But I'm probably just, at this point, I'm probably just playing around with it. And if we run this, I also added a wait to this where I can say, use the published, that's probably why I'm playing around publish date. Use the publish date as a wait. So looking at like how far back in time it goes is how to weigh it. So if the episode is newer, it has a higher weight than episodes that are really old. So I'm using a linear decay algorithm to say, like, score it based upon how old it is. The idea being I want fresher results to be at the top. And then let's put in our pre-signed URL question here. So if I do this result, now what I'm getting is here, actually, the hits are up top here, but what I actually want to do is look at the aggregate responses. So these are the buckets by publish date. So this is the first bucket, and here are the results inside that bucket. So you can see that this is from the same episode, but different results. So what I can do is I'll design my skill to say, here's the first result from an episode called APL Power Hour, and then I could say next result in this in this episode, or I could say like next episode, and it'll like zoom to the next bucket, which would be down here. And actually, I started saving these queries because I want to version control like these queries as I'm going through. And here I did put publish date, but I think what I had before, I can look at, I created my index in code. Where did I do that? Index create, that's what I called it. So here, I can create these like buckets based off of any of the keywords that I used. So like YouTube video ID is probably the best one to bucket off of. So let me come back down here. So let's bucket off of that. And now when I look at the aggregates below, the first bucket is this YouTube video, APL Power Hour. The next bucket is this YouTube video, and so on. So anyway, I'm doing a lot here to kind of understand like what's the best way to query these. And anyway, we're slowly working our way through there. There we go. So my Lambda code was updated. So going back to what I was doing in Lambda code, was I was taking the, okay, so I could say open developer video archive. By the way, I renamed it away from Alexa because I say the word Alexa way too often. So I called it something else, which you'll hear me say in a minute. So I can say open developer video archive, and then I can search for something. That something will get passed over, to my Lambda function. And now my Lambda function is going to pull that something out of the request, and it's going to speak it back to me. And then it's going to say, was that helpful? So let's go ahead and do that. Computer, open developer video archive.
Welcome to the Developer Office Hours Video Library Search.
Search for that one thing or that other thing or that one thing or else. Doesn't matter.
For that one thing or that other thing or that one thing or else.
And it should say, was that helpful?
Was that helpful?
Computer, stop.
Goodbye.
So, that was not very useful, but it's really cool, I think. It shows how easy this is to just process the incoming requests and do something with it. So what am I doing here? So ultimately, this query slot value is going to go into, if I go back to my queries, it's going to go into my query here. And then that will search and it'll pull back results. And we can actually start doing that now because we have everything we need. So one of the things I want to check is the requirements. Yes, we already have OpenSearch as a requirement here. Let me go over to, again, this guy here, and let me start pulling in OpenSearch stuff. So I want to actually perform a query. I won't be able to play the video yet. And to be clear, I should also show this. These results have the YouTube video URL in it and the start time. And so I'm actually able to, I need to get my audio working through here so that you guys can actually see it, but actually maybe it'll work if I turn on my speakers. So I can do this. I can say and T equals. If I come back here, I can paste in the time in seconds. And it should start playing this YouTube video at exactly this moment in time where it says, so we can show how to create a pattern and scale it to fit, which has nothing to do with a pre-signed URL, but the reason why this result came up, you can see the score is not as high as these other ones. So actually, let me find this one. This is the highest result in this episode. You can see here the score is 1,000. So let me, instead of that time, let me go to this time. And it should start playing this.
With this, you can also, if you're doing Alexa hosted, you can use this utils thing, and it has all the different pieces that you need to get a pre-signed URL, so you don't have to make your that bucket public. You can just use the.
So you can see everything is working, and my transcription process was working great. So now we just need to be able to connect the two things together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a bunch of code into this Lambda function. If I were to just put all my code inside this one Lambda function, let me be clear, in this one Python file, this file is going to get huge. So I am going to break this out in the future into different packages in Python. But for right now, let's just kind of throw everything together. just to prove out this concept. And so what I'm going to do, let me just paste over. I need to get all the requirements from my other Lambda function where I built out. So what I need to do is I need to build out an OpenSearch client. So I already did this in my Python function that creates the index. So I'm just going to copy and paste it over. And then I will create, or should we just do that now? Let's just do that now. Let's do that now. So let me do new file. Search client is what I'll call it. Okay. So let's do this. Let's copy all of this stuff and figure out what we don't need. We don't need an S3 client. We do need this. I need to make sure that here I'm getting environment variables for region. That's by default in every Lambda function. I have OS domain and episode index and paragraph index names. Those have default values, so I don't have to specify them. But I want to make sure that OS domain is getting passed into this Lambda function. Go away. Okay, I don't need you. So here it is. There it is. OS domain is getting passed in. So we do have that. So here we go. Let me go back here. Perform search. We'll do search term. And what do I want to do? End result is not this. I don't want to create. So I need to go to my OpenSearch package. Look at the syntax. We're actually just performing a query. That does the index. This is searching for, and it's pretty simple. No. Okay, so index is going to be paragraphs index. Query, we need to build out a giant query. We'll get rid of that. Client is client. Okay, so query equals, and it should just be, yeah, a giant JSON object. So let's go grab our query. I have it in code here. So this JSON query is huge. But here we're going to put the search term as a query string. I'm actually going to return 0 results in the hits section. And that's because the aggregates are where we're going to pull all the results from. So now I have my query, I have my paragraphs index, and we can do logging.info search results and logging.info, and I'm going to do JSON dumps the response. And then we'll just do return. We'll want to process these results a lot better, but we can just return the results as is. I feel like there's going to be, we're going to have to do something. We'll have to do a lot of processing on this. So what we don't want is we don't want to pass from our client this entire JSON blob of stuff. Dr. Lazy Beats. I am still using Starlink. I'm actually trying something else where my backup internet, and sorry if you said this like minutes ago and I'm seeing it. My backup internet, I bounce off of a mountain here in Arizona. So what I'm trying now is OBS is I have that OBS bound to my mountain internet where I'm bouncing off a mountain, and the rest of it is coming down Starlink, and it seems like it's doing better. Like it seems to be more stable than my last time, but not quite super stable yet. So I'm trying my best to get these to work, but that's just kind of how it is right now. So bear with me, and again, I apologize. I don't know what else to do. I think I just need to move is part of it, and figure out where I need to go to next. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go back to, let me actually pull this over here. So what I want to do is say import, what do I call this? Search client. And now what I can do is come down here, and instead of the speak output being that, let's still do that. Let's have that be the speak output. But let's also logging.info query results, and query results equals search client perform search, and we'll pass in here query slot dot value. Okay, so now we should be able to do a search in our database from that as my Echo Show as a input device. And I don't exactly know how this is going to be returned. Do they have an example of how they're like processing the results? Do they have like a test OpenSearch? Come on, show me a test where you're doing a query. Test client. I'm just looking to see what that return payload is going to be looking like. It should mirror very much like this. So if I go into aggregations.episode.buckets. Whatever, I should be able to do that. But let me actually deploy this function and see what it looks like. Make sure I saved everything. Oh, you know what? I need to come in here and change publish date to what I put in, YouTube video ID. Okay, so now let me deploy this. So again, I'm rebuilding my now Lambda backend skill code and replacing it. So now when I call this, when I talk to this, it should pass back and actually perform an OpenSearch query. And then log the results. Then we can look at the results. And now I could read the documentation and go through that, but I'd much rather just log the response from my OpenSearch Python library and then interrogate it and figure out what I need to do next. Or it'll just blow up completely. I do have the right permissions set for this, so I should be able to make the necessary calls to OpenSearch from this Lambda function. We'll find out. And I probably need to drop a few minutes early today. Because we have a tech talk coming up on A/B testing your skill, which is really, really cool. You can perform A/B tests on your Alexa skills. So I could try different queries to see how well those perform and how different users are interacting with like different queries. Like as an example of an A/B test I could do. If your skill is selling stuff, you can do an A/B test on like different upsells, all this fun stuff. Okay, so now it's deploying. Look at Twitch Inspector, and it seems to be doing a lot better. Dr. Lazy Beats, it should be better. I don't know. I'm getting tons of to be clear, it is dropping a lot of frames. 20% of the frames were dropped this session. That is terrible. Absolutely terrible. But I will upload a version of this to my YouTube channel that I recorded locally that shouldn't have all those frame drops. Okay. Now, let me talk to my device because I should be able to say, open this and search. Let me do a search for A/B testing. Okay. Computer, open developer video archive.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Or it just failed immediately, which is also cool because now we have something to work with to look at errors. Let's look at Cloudwatch. I'm sure I did something stupid. No module name CFN response. Why am I trying to import CFN response? I do not need CFN response, and I'm sure I copied it over here. Yes. CFN response, that's unfortunate. CFN response is a custom Python package. Oh, sweet. It's looking fine. Yay, Dr. Lazy Beats. That makes me so happy to hear that. I'm glad it's doing better. So this blew up because I was trying to import a library, which I didn't add to my requirements because I don't need it as requirements. CFN response is a special package used to respond when you have a custom CloudFormation resource, which is what I did for the index create Lambda function, which I just copy and pasted code from. It is a CloudFormation custom resource, so I had to include that package. But here I didn't anyway. No, I thought you were recording from YouTube. No, so I'm doing both. So I'm streaming live, although I don't. I'm not trained yet to actually look at my chat to see who's interacting with me. Mostly because I'm new and I don't have a lot of people chatting with me. So I don't always look over there. I need to have like pop up and like do like a bunch of like alerts to say like, hey, dummy, someone's actually talking to you. But I am also recording this on my local machine so that I can put it up into YouTube. So this is going to be a recording. But thank you, Dr. Lazy Beats. Anyway, so I would much rather be interacting with people for an hour and a half than just talking to myself. So I'm very excited that people are chatting with me. I know. Yes. So you said, by the way, your stream is lagging. That is not surprising. I still don't have very good internet. Hopefully it's lagging less. I know it's lagging though. I don't have, I just need to move. I need to move and get to some place that has much better internet that I can actually do real streaming with. Right now, my Twitch inspector shows that it's doing better. In last episodes, I had like big red chunks where it says like, you suck, you have no internet connection. Yes, Dr. Lazy Beats. I only have about a couple more minutes left before I have to jump off because I have to run to another meeting. But what is your question? Happy to help. In the meantime, let me do this. Computer, oh no. Open developer video archive.
Welcome to the Developer Office Hours Video
Fix it.
Library Search.
Search for A/B testing and what it's good for. Search for A/B testing and what it's good for.
For ab testing and what it's good for.
That's not quite what I said, but let's see what the search came back with. Do you know any ways a learner can get a job? Yeah. What's really cool. Oh, computer stop.
Goodbye.
What's really cool, and I'm not a good source on this. There's nothing there to learn. I've heard people talk about good ways to do this. I'm not a good source on this, but I do know that like people in the industry have done really, really well with different online certification programs as far as like proving that you have experience in something. So trying to spend your time, any free time you have, if you can afford it, to like go take a certification exam. I know Google has some, and just starting from there and then building up. And I know that a lot of people have given advice, which I think is great. It's like try to help out on an open source project. Try to like just try to get some experience possible, even if like you're working like through your current work experience, you can't quite get there. And I like what's really great about now versus like even like 10 years ago is that more and more companies are realizing that you don't actually have to have like a CS degree in order to be good in technology. And so going and getting like a certification proves something that you have, you're getting there. But that's kind of my advice right now is that just, and then try to like get any kind of entry level position you can find. So here we got search results back. So I was able to I didn't log the query. I should log the query. Let me log that. I'm trying to hurry because I do unfortunately have to jump off here. So let me do logging.info, the query. Let me do. Okay, so now we have the query being logged. Next time I deploy this, it'll be logged. But here you can see I have search results. And so I would, what I'll be able to do here. So next time I'll get back on Friday. Yeah, you don't do coding for your current job. Yeah, I know. And that can be challenging, but like, I think like just as much of your free time as you can, just try to learn, try to build, create your own GitHub projects, do things like I have, I built this like really silly cake time tutorial. So my job, I work for Amazon Alexa. So, everything I have is around, Alexa right now, but I'll put this in, I could put this into the chat, like finding tutorials. I thought I could put this into the chat. Let me put it in the chat over here. Come on, go. Like there's an example of a tutorial. This is for Alexa, and this may not be like what you want to be doing, but like finding tutorials like this that have like really simple like code examples to kind of follow along and start building, taking like certification or different, like Udemy is a great place. Like I went there and took a bunch of courses so I could pass some certifications. Like I got the AWS Solutions Architect certification. I got some others as well. Like those might be a good thing to just get, like just trying to find like those different things you can learn in your spare time, start getting some certifications. Actually, AWS might be a good one to get, just so you can start proving to future employers that you do know something, and then finding like an entry-level job. That's the best advice I can give at this point. I know it can be hard to break in, and I went down a traditional path, so I'm not a great source on this. But try something like, just finding what you can and just building what you can in your free time is how I learn everything anyway. I barely learned anything from my education. I need hands-on learning to like really like sink it in and get it home. So, okay. We made a lot of progress today. I am able to, from my skill, I'm able to perform a search query. I think next time on Friday, I'll come on online Friday. I'm going to, I think, add Alexa presentation language to this. I will totally steal from this amazing website, APL Ninja, how to, like, I'm going to steal from here an APL document to play videos. So this site doesn't seem to work so great on Safari. I should have opened it in Chrome, but I'll steal an APL document from here that we can start playing with, so we can actually start putting a video player on the screen, and then figure out how to actually start streaming these videos over. I have a CDN that I can pull from. I have the YouTube video in the search results, but I also have in the search results oh my gosh, I lost my place. In the search results, I also have the name of the YouTube video. Yes, here, that I can stream directly from my CDN, which is, I think, the right way to do it, to show the video on the screen. And then we'll start building out the video controls and start going with it. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'll check to make sure that my subscription's still working. Let me check this in. Added search client to backend skill code to query for searches. That's the worst commit message ever, but that gets it. So anyway, thanks for following along. Dr. Lazy Beats, good to see you again. I'll be back online on Friday. Today's Wednesday. Oh my gosh. And we'll pick up here where we left off. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really enjoyed it. Hope you learned something.